a loser. Sometimes people say I'm ugly because I don't have a dad. I couldn't help it with my pain. I got involved in drugs and tried committing suicide. On my 7th grade year, I got raped and also was bullied more. After after my last breath, I was about to end my life to go into a better world. I was sent to the hospital a couple times. I cutted myself. Since I was 10, almost all the pain, what people put me through was a lot, but I gave them the power to hurt me. I pray every night that I ask the angels to help me. No one was ever there for me when I needed them. I was a loner. I was a loser. I was, ever since 10 years old, I listened to hardcore metal. I wore black. I never came out of my room because I was rude to people because I wanted them to feel the hurt that when I went in. And this was her story. And she was attempted suicide a couple times. She cut her arms, and she was going to be here tonight to tell her story, but she had homework, so I was trying to beg her to do it, but she did it to the foster grandparents. They actually got to see her and tell her life story about it. And she is currently getting services and help for that.
So this
And I have 22 11-year-old girls that attempted suicide last year.
Oh.
How many?
11-year-olds, 22.
22 11-year-old girls.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
No.
So, and this is a 15-year-old, and it's really hard. And the elders did ask her, what can we do to help you? What can we do to help you to feel better in life? And they said, she said, what you can do to help me is care for me, make them stop bullying me, calling me fat and ugly and raping me. How do I make that stop? So this was her story.
Teresa, I could see how emotional this still is for you.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
You know, I mean, I'll just say 25 years ago, I had a 6-year-old. I mean, and we all might have our stories, and Josephine has a lot of stories. We all have stories. And I think what our whole point tonight in bringing this presentation here is that we need to commit to embracing these programs and taking on the responsibility that this is our problem, that it's not, we can't point finger that behavioral health didn't do their job or that family didn't care for, we need, these are our kids. And these problems, we didn't have ages up there. We should have ages, we should have gender, we should have tribal, which community. I mean, we should, we have a lot of data we don't have yet, and that's actually what our research assistants are supposed to be doing, is also helping us pull all this data together. But that will give us a good picture, and sadly, I will say this, and I've said this in council, and how we treat each other at the top as council. If we don't value each other, if we can't come together and care for each other, if we can't support one another at that level and show our children that we care and we love each other and we value each other, then we're showing them that all we want to do is fight and judge, and that this anger is something that just continues, and it's a part of exactly what historical, when John talks about history, it's part of what the federal government wanted, right? I mean, they set us up to be this way, and we actually are living it. And so, the only way that all the protective factors out there that come out of Indian country, culture, until we can come together and recognize that we need to value and start supporting culture and practicing our culture and valuing each other, taking care of one another. We didn't take care of ourselves first. We took care of our families. We took care of our elders. We took care of our children. So until we do that together, we will continue to have these preventable deaths. And we know this week, another death in one of our facilities, not acceptable. And so I hope that we keep talking about it. I'm going to keep bringing it up, and I know that, we keep talking about it. But at the next, just so everybody knows, at the next Health and Human Service Committee, again, I said this earlier, Andy Joseph Jr., the chair, and the committee directed all of the administration and directors to come together And we need to create that response team, and we need to get back into the schools with these prevention programs, because 11, 6, 8, 10, however, we're intervening. And this bullying, that families do it with each other as well, you know, and that has to, we need to like intervene, we need to stop it.
On November 1st, we're having a national prayer day. It's called Life is Sacred, and it's a national prayer day for suicide prevention.
So can we get
And we're
posters out
working
on that?
on, yeah, we're getting armbands and everything, and we're still meeting on that to finalize the time and everything that everybody will be able to attend that and do that.
I hope that the peacemakers have a big part of that, because they've actually been such a big part of this whole thing. So, I mean, I really hope that you guys are like, you know, part of that, the leadership of that. You guys have been really key, so I'm excited about it. Thank you, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Prayer day. That's right, that's awesome. Good job.
And thank you, John, today for doing that, for a moment of silence for suicide prevention. That's good.
That's awesome.
Well, I want to thank you for, you know, asking me to do that, because, you know, the last couple of meetings, when I was asked to say the prayer, you know, we had a moment where we were praying for those families that lost ones, and, you know, it's really hard, because I know people that, I have friends that took their own lives, and I had a chance, because I was a part of Natural Helpers when I was in high school, and I was able to help this young woman to see somebody, and she was okay. Later on, when I was working at Dartmouth, and I was the student program person, and I was working with all of the kids, you know, from across the country, and one young man, he was also seeing alcohol counselor and somebody else in the program there. He took his life, and, you know, it still affects me today, because I felt like I was responsible for him, because I was his big brother at that time, you know. So we never forget him, you know. And when one more does it, it's really sad, because there's a way out, and, you know, we miss him. And we gotta find a way to let them know that there's another way, because they are valued, and we have to show them that they're valued.
And I did say that when we handed out information today on suicide, we targeted 400 kids at the ages of middle school.
Exactly.
And we handed them out the signs of suicide, and I asked a couple kids, "Can you tell me what a sign is?" And he says, "Yeah, I have it right in front of me. What do you want to know?" And
That's
in
great.
fact, I asked Benny's son. I was like, "Wow, he's in 6th grade already?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I'll tell you. What do you want to know?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow." It's like, you know, I thought they'd just take them and throw them at like planes or whatever, but no, they were reading them. They were curious. So
I went to Pascal Sherman yesterday and spent time up there, and went to church and was part of the mass, and Barbara, Rita, and I both spoke at the mass, and you know, you can see it. You could see how lonely some children are. You know, I was talking to Marcy, and I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. We need to invest in making opportunities for our young people, letting them know we care. So I thank you guys, and keep up the good work, and know that we love you all for all the passion and caring that you're doing for all of our members out there. Thank you. Benny, you're on. You're facilitating the boss. Oh, I'm sorry, Mandy, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
It's like, again? No.
You can start.
You guys were mentioning, you know, about certain members in the family being depressed and how other members are supposed to pay attention. Well, one of the issues that has happened in my family, it happened years ago, was everybody was depressed and suicidal at one point. And how do you deal with that? How do you have someone be able to identify that situation and help? The only reason I didn't do anything at that time is because of everybody else in my family. I didn't want to start the domino effect. And I knew that that's what would happen. I knew if I'm gone, everybody else in my family is already depressed. Everybody else is already having issues. There's no way that we're not going to go one by one. So how do you help families like that?
I think one of the biggest things is that you need to seek help individually, you know, because maybe there's 8 in the family. You know,
And-
we've got therapists to handle 8. We can also do family therapy, because it's not just doing the individual, it is the relationship in the family.
You got to have positive factors.
And, you know, here's the truth of the matter, if we don't speak about it, then it's the secret that Teresa was talking about. You know, and Teresa and I have worked on a couple cases together where we've had to get releases so we can talk about what's going on with the family for this kind of situation. And the truth is, if one person comes to get help, then we're getting other information, and then that person usually goes back and says, well, you know, I want my sister to come with me. And that person may come with you as a support, and then all of a sudden they're connected with services, and then we can continue to work on the family. It's better for us to at least have that door open so we can get in and help the family than for the secret to be behind the door and us not know about it. You know, that's what I was talking about with our statistics we have right now with the suicides that have happened on the reservation. None of them were currently in services. And I can tell you that one of them I knew something about because someone else from the community was concerned about them, and I offered to do a referral to that person. And I'm very much feeling like John, that I feel responsible that that person didn't come do services, but I couldn't go to that person directly. They refused to have services. But that was the first time that it was known that they were concerned. But someone else in the community stepped up and said, hey, I'm concerned about so-and-so, and we started to make some action to it, but they were not willing to come in. And that's the one thing that we have to, as a community, come together and let it know that suicide is not a bad word. It is not something we shouldn't talk about. It is something that we absolutely need to talk about. You know, today I went to the middle school and I spoke with somebody, and Teresa happened to speak with somebody, and we were talking about resources. And as we communicate, we know that we're reaching the same children out there that are hurting, and now they know they have 2 supportive outlets. And this morning, they felt they had none. So, you know, we gotta look at it that way, that we now have 2. You know, and Teresa will continue to work with them, I'll continue to work with them, and that's the whole idea, is to make those numbers greater.
There's a process for family.
Yeah.
What I wanted to get back to again, when I look at it, it's up to all of us. We have family. And cultural speaking, and I was a young age, I was taught by my ancestor, you're not supposed to take your life. I don't know if you guys were taught that. If you did it in bravery to protect your people, that was the way I was brought up that way, and I still believe that way. And that's part of the way it is. And we need to talk to our young ones. We need to. Well, another thing I see, I'm someone your age, you can communicate a lot better than some other. If you know the person,
To be able to build rapport faster.
Yeah, 3 months ago, I was called over, and this individual I knew wanted to commit suicide, and he was pretty close. Sometimes you guys' program is really good, but I don't think you communicate too well with you guys. Certain individuals will communicate with other people more than others, and you have to realize that and know that, you know. And that goes for young or old, you know. I can't communicate with a lot of the people that maybe you guys can, so that we have to get all involved for our young and look at them that way.
There was I really wanted to add on to the Suicide Coalition met this past week, and I went in and sat in there, and one of the biggest issues that came out of there was getting the message out to our tribal communities that it was looked down upon. Suicide was not our native way. It was not our tribal way. And so that message, like having this reservation-wide healing day, prayer day, that could be a theme, is that suicide is not our native way, and get that value back out there, teaching as part of our practice. And I think that's something that's really important. I think you had a couple people from Nispelem, a couple elders that were there, and they were like, you know, what we do is we glorify it, we give all this attention, and actually it was not looked at as a good thing, it was frowned upon. So, however we decide to do that, but that's actually the key right there, that message that you just gave. I appreciate that. Yes, Sandra.
since I moved away from Keller, 'cause that's where I was for a good number of years with my late husband, I know what you're talking about on the suicide, and it can be other forms of suicide, not only attempting suicide, but just literally from, living the life of alcohol abuse and seeing drinking going on in the family.
ODing.
drugs. Before I left over there, it was just getting started. All because of one particular lady that lived over there with her husband, I believe. Everything just went downhill. It's heavy over there now. And the kids down to, I understand, 6, 7 years old are doing meth now. Okay, one person over there started it, and it went from house to house to house to house. I lost my family, my sons, my husband, and it's hard to talk about. I lost my son.
No, don't be
Fine.
sorry, thank you. Thank you for reminding us.
Sorry, we don't have tissue.
Anyway, that was a peaceful place, over there.
There you go.
Very peaceful place over there to live.
Beautiful place.
You could walk down the street and not have to worry about someone passing drugs around, But watching the young kids, I have a friend that works for the Head Start, and she said, I can't believe it. She said the little kids, they show up there at the Head Start, and they haven't even ate. They just said, Mom, we don't have no food in the house. Why? Oh, I don't know. And the other one would say, Mommy was drunk last night. She talked to them a little bit, they're little 3 and 4-year-olds.
Yes.
But I've seen the pain, ever since I left over there.
And you're exactly right. It's identified in the elementary and the preschool programs and our Head Start programs. It's in our job place. It's everywhere. And our schools are dealing with it, and we haven't a program working with our schools except our attendance program. We have a lot of work to do. We have to,
This one lady that started all this over there, I guess if she was owed money for the drugs, she'd go right into their houses and tell her, whoever was with her, take this out of that house. I want that one. Take that one out of the house. This person owes me this much for drugs. And she was selling everything. Meth, heroin, whatever. Making a lot of money, and she's still doing it today. And she's one of our tribal members. It starts from there, because that's where your youth, they watch if the parents gets involved in that, or their family member or relative or whatever takes them down, okay, they're gonna go down too. It just affects everything.
it's all related and it's all
Yeah.
connected.
Fortunately, my sons did not die from drugs, but they did die from alcohol. And it was observed from their father, plus I did too. I blame myself too, but they say you're not supposed to do that. But I haven't talked about them like this in a long time.
I hope you feel that you're in a safe place here. We have all the people that you can be around.
The bad thing that is, my youngest son, he died in '93, and he was ready to go to Washington State University, and he didn't get that chance.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yes, I've worked at the Tribal Head Start now probably 10 years. Well, this last year I've been with foster grandparent and worked up there with the Tribal Head Start kids. I had an experience up there not long after I started, that a little 3-year-old girl brought a syringe in her pocket one day. Yeah, they immediately called the tribal police and replaced the little girl with somebody. And then the father threatened everybody up there that was working. Yeah, it was really sad because they were
When
bringing
did
that
that happen?
syringe.
How many years
It's
ago?
when we were still over in the old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty sad. But it's really sad to see some of these kids come up there, you know.
I had a first grader bring a pistol to school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, these stories are just,
They're all
Josephine.
very relevant.
I'm
Very.
sorry, Josephine and then Mandy.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I had this young mother was telling me about her 6-year-old wearing colors. Want everything to be red. And so she said, you know, the gangs are starting really young.
Yeah.
And so we just need to be aware of that. Go ahead.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Josephine.
Well, before this meeting, I didn't know that you could actually refer people for suicide. I knew you could for drugs and alcohol. I had no idea. Glad I have that number because you're gonna probably hear from me. Not for me, but I'm already in counseling over there. So one of the things I wanted to ask is, do you guys? You said something about safe talk, and that's some sort of training, right?
Yes.
Well, do you guys do some sort of open share talk to where you gather all these kids that are feeling so alone and try to get them connected to one another so that they, you know, can identify and build rapport together and not be alone anymore?
I think Michelle and Monique has a talking circle on Wednesday nights at 7, yeah, and it's all youth.
Well, I'm asking you guys, and the reason I'm asking you guys is because I think one of you that work with the behavioral health or work in counseling should be attending these meetings to help guide these people and to make sure, because the people that are running the open talk right now, they're not educated. Yes, they are very helpful for just stepping up and doing that, but talk
Mandy?
circles can go into.
Mandy, you're exactly right on. We just had a big meeting about this last week, and I want you to know that Allison actually had to listen to the 4 ladies, well, and the young man, Bradley, speaking about the issues that they're dealing with. And so she said, well, you need to be careful about the issues that you're talking about with these people. You need to, and we're like, yeah, you guys need to partner up here. Behavioral health needs to be participating and helping with training so they know those indicators and who to refer to, because they were asking, who do we refer to? And I know that one of the key things that they're working on right now is they want to be junior peacemakers. So they're building on the junior peacemaker program as well. But behavioral health is not in that formula, and we need to make sure that's happening. So I know Allison is committed to doing that. Somebody else had their hand up?
Right here.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, when we talk about culture, you know, I work in CD department, and that's one of the things that we're trying to bring into the program now is that, you know, we're trying to, you know, not only, you know, bring them to recovery, but bring them back to our cultural values.
Yes.
You know, that's something that we're trying to really incorporate into our
What we
program.
want.
You know, and you're so right, you know, the alcohol and drugs, it's taken away from, you know, these young people. And the people that we deal with now, you know, it's like they're the fathers and, you know, mothers of these young people. And so this is the ones we're trying to reach, and we're trying to tell them, you know, that you guys are responsible for the kids, the future, our future. You know, and when you gotta talk about talking circles, one of the things that happened, you know, for this program is that we have a couple of people that stepped up, like you're saying, and they started a talking circle for recovery. You know, so in some ways it's taken steps. You know, and I think it's in the right direction. You know, and I'm
I have a question on that too.
Yeah,
When I first moved into Morningstar, I was taking care of Aubrey and Eric, my goddaughter's children. And they had a little barbecue or something in back of the apartment where the play area is now. And all the kids that lived at Morningstar were so happy. They saw the balloons, they saw all the toys, you could spin this wheel and get toys, They'd stand in line over and over to spin their wheel. And that was really great, and I think if we, as a community, do more of that at every housing, not just Morningstar, over on Jackson Street, at headquarters, do something there. Go down to the park. Go down to the Stampede Apartments where Native kids live too. Come down here to this park and have a thing for the kids, for the people, for the parents. Go out to the TANF office and sit up in front of their office and have a little thing going on. At least once a month for the children. When the parents bring the children, it's a miracle. It's great how the kids react.
Yes, it
And if
is.
you can get a hold of 1 or 2 kids, you got it. You got it.
That's great.
For their future, you're helping them. And they'll see that there are things out there to do besides sit at home and watch mom drink beer or dad drink beer. I can go out here and play with my friends and let these guys in here drink all they want. If I had that, I had my brothers and sisters to keep me busy, but it was just, I loved watching it because Eric and Aubrey stood in line too, and they were just there because I was babysitting them.
You do.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say something about it.
I was wondering, when you send somebody to rehab for drug or alcohol, why they don't have a halfway house here on the reservation for them to go into when they get out? Or have them a job that they can look forward to? If you're a convicted felon, nobody's gonna hire you.
Right. Halfway house, transition house,
Something
treatment
for
center.
them. Because you go in there, 20 days, 30 days?
28.
Really good.
Exactly. When we don't have aftercare here afterwards, we're just there's big gaps in services here. We don't have a relapse program. We don't have. There's just a lot of things.
We have a relapse program.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, it's here. And once a person gets out of treatment, they come here for aftercare.
Really?
And
What happens if the
Actually, I've
stay
had-
from over town?
yeah.
this is like, now, when that person goes into, after they get evaluated, and they go into residential, and once they get out, they come here,
Is
and
that
they're
just through
set
the
up, they're
tribe?
admitted again, then they're put into relapse prevention, and if the evaluation says that they have to be here for a year, we work with them for a year, so.
We just had a number of clients that came in, and I don't think they know that maybe we've had that, and maybe we have it in Omak. I don't know if we have it in all the districts, but they actually came in and talked about their recovery and how long it's been, and all the services that they couldn't get locally, or some of the services that they felt like that were not relative to young people, I guess. And maybe the culture, they really wanted the culture. So I think that, like tonight, we learned a lot about behavioral health. Maybe we need to have the chemical dependency program do another presentation and give an update about actually what's happening, and not us perceiving that, these other things are not happening.
Kind of speaking to that, Itzy, when I was doing my PhD at WSU, I actually studied, kind of coming back to what Edwin was saying, and when I was talking about that studies weren't out there, meaning on our tribe. There's lots of suicide stuff, but my dissertation was actually a qualitative study, so I went out and I interviewed 20 people within our tribe from 18 to any age and elder. And I was asking, what is Colville Tribal's views of mental health and wellness? What is our definition? And I actually presented my dissertation and the findings 10 years ago when I did this. And one of the first things that they came up with, our members, is that we need a halfway house, we need transitional housing, and we need our own treatment center. And when they looked at a treatment center, they talked about it being somewhere like an Inchulin, where it's remote, it's with Mother Nature, that we had, fire, we had water, we had trees. I mean, they went into great detail of what we needed and what needed to be built. And so when I presented that, one of the other things that came up, as Lynn was talking about, is that it talked about a big brother, big sister program that needed to be here. So all the programs are identified in my dissertation that was at that time. Talks from little kids to elders, because you're absolutely right. We send them away to treatment for 21 days, 72 days, whatever it might be. They come back here, we have them right back in the same HUDs, in the same houses, with the same party groups, and we're saying, hey, by the way, stay clean and sober. Well, if it didn't work the first time, honestly, we're not doing them justice by putting them back in the same
Well, what
environment.
happens when it's across town? I mean, when you have to deal with them off the reservation?
That makes it tough.
See?
It makes it really tough, and I think, you know,
when
one
you
of the
can't
things
come
that,
over here to.
yeah, and, you know, one of the things that I didn't talk about that I probably should have, is that on our CD side, there seems to be some confusion, because we are on a 638 contract with mental health. And so on the mental health side of the house, we service clinical families. So let's say somebody is enrolled that is within the household. Everybody else in that household can get mental health services. But the problem we have is on the CD side of our house, you must be enrolled in IHS. You must have an IHS number to get any CD services from our tribal program. So that means if there's a husband and a wife, and they're both addicted, and the husband is enrolled, he can get services, but the wife can't. So as a tribe, we're only servicing half of that family, but it's impacting everybody that lives there.
We only serve tribal members.
We only serve tribal members.
I'd like to say something about rehab. I'm watching a station called Link Television, and the Mohawks have a rehab program where their children, they come out, they bring them home, and they, because they have timber back here that they can cut and everything, and they make some of the most beautiful boats, what's called canoes, and kayaks. And I made that mention to Ben that we got these blowing plywood over here that we could set up, and we've got buildings over here too. Have to go there and maybe even get a whole bunch of kids together and build a great big sailboat. To make a project like that to where they, that they'd be interested in doing something, going over. I'd be willing to go over as an engineer and help, do that type of thing.
Yeah, there's some good opportunities.
Keep my mind busy. But we need to do that type of thing because that gives people pride in themselves. It gives them a sense of an accomplishment. And once you do it as a team, and everybody slapping each other on the back, boy, and then they're pretty proud of it, because when you do things in a team effort, it's a lot bigger than when somebody brags about himself. I've done this, and I've done that, and I think that's the type of thing we should be doing and looking at. And when he's talking about rehabilitation, we should be creating those type of things for our kids so they'll have some kind of a
Life skill.
a program that they can build certain things.
Well, I thank everybody for their comments, and I want you to get your dissertation copy out to all of us so we can see it, because I think you're right. I think there's a plan in place. Sandra and then John.
Yeah, this same person that I was talking about that just caused a lot of problems over there in Keller, she was removed from a HUD house that I guess they were buying, and they had all these drugs and everything in their house, so they had to move. Well, what they did is they just picked up all their problems and took it down to Elmer City, I believe, and so it's starting down there now. It's just going around, and it's probably working its way up to Nespel and down to the dam, and oh, and then she turned it over, the location in Keller to a person to be in charge of Keller, to work under her. And that's bad.
So that's your district.
Oh.
Let's get the police on it. Let's deal with it.
But it just seems like it just goes on and on and on.
It's just
and
trickling.
it never stops.
The ripple effect.
Yeah.
I know years ago that there's a guy who was doing something over in our district here, and they kicked him off the reservation. He could never come back. I don't know why we don't use that.
That's the kind of thing.
They have in the courts a couple of times. I actually have a cousin that was kicked off the reservation for too many drug deals.
Well, I guess
It was what she
thing
was taught.
that I wanted to share, and it's the same thing that I shared with the middle schoolers today, and it refers to connection. You know, and I was trying to bring up our traditional ways about how we're connected to the land, we're connected to the animals, we're connected to each other. And that connection can work in an evil way, it can work in a good way. And that's the message I think we're going away with today. You know, we gotta make sure we put more effort into those connections, those positive ones.
Yep.
That we can do stuff together, whether it's, you know, kids, you know, having balloons for kids. A balloon with a kid, man, that they're happy. You know, that just something small. But it's that positive connection that is so needed. You know, and we build up these walls and these isolation where we don't want to go outside our own little area, but we need to reach out. That's why those areas like Kettle Falls were so popular, because that's where we reached out and connected with one another. And those connections, we need to start making those again, whether it's, you know, little kids playing sports together or, you know, people getting together. We got to do that. That's what's lacking, I think, within our people. We need to bring that back forward.
I'm hoping that, you know, that we keep this kind of energy going and focus and not forget the stories and keep moving forward in this area. But John, I wanted to say something, that all the work that was done today in middle school and high schools and Pascal Sherman and all of Lake Roosevelt, the boys were, I mean the guys, excuse me, they're my youngers, right? So they call me old lady or teacher or grounds, you know. So they have been to Lake Roosevelt School District as well. I mean, so they've been all over the place, but I had a message tonight on my phone that one of the middle school teachers told his class that, I don't know why we have the day off tomorrow, this Native American Day is, you know. So I'm going to give you that name, John, and I'm going to let you have them. I'm going to let you have them. It's going to be fun. I like it. But yes.
You know what? With all respect to all the programs and you know, the Peacemakers, behavioral health, sometimes I think that these different individuals, by the time they get to this stage in their life where they're contemplating suicide, I think they put up barriers and walls, and they feel like they don't trust anybody, and so I think that we need to try to have people out in the different communities and spread throughout our reservation that they feel that they can trust, that are role models, that are mentors, that are people that they believe and they've seen, they know, that people talk about them, speak of them highly, and you know, to have them call a hotline, that's awesome, that's great, but sometimes they're not willing to do that because of these walls and these barriers that I'm talking about. And if we have different people set up all throughout our reservation that are positive role model, mentor people, I think they'll be more opt to reach out and ask for help and maybe open themselves up. Let's see, what else have I got? You know, I guess that was kind of the main thing, but I wanted to share one thing, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but you know, I had a couple, I sweat all the time, and I sweat with kids, I sweat with adults, and there was a couple different instances at the sweat where some of my friends were talking to me about suicide, and you know, somebody told me at one time, they said, you know, the Creator put you here, and if you take your own life, you're taking it out of the will of the Creator, and you may not see them people that you're wanting to go see. And I've told this to two different people at the sweat, and they're still alive today, and they actually respect me, I mean, you know, more than they ever have. They thank me for it all the time in confidentiality. And so anytime, and I'm no expert and I'm no counselor or nothing, but anytime I hear anybody talk like that, I always try to refer to that saying and say, you know, you're not supposed to take your own life. You know, you may not make it to the other side where all these people are waiting for you, and the Creator put you here, so it's up to Him to call you home. And so I just wanted to share that.
I'm going to say this because all of what Benny has said is actually so grassroots. I mean, he remembers all of the members, the young people, he remembers all the voices that he works with. But one of the messages that he gave to me is, while you guys are putting these digital stories together for that prayer day, the reservation-wide prayer day. We need some of the digital stories about that, that's around that theme that is not our way. It is, these are the consequences, and actually that's the same teachings that I was taught. You could talk to the elders and peacemakers and get some of those digital stories, hear their story, and then let's show it. Let's show it, and let's come together and pray and get the message out there to all of our people. You know, I'm excited about that. I appreciate that. It was very, you know, it was very close to your heart. I know that.
I'd like to bring up
Very
one
genuine.
caution.
Sandra? And then Edgar.
After you, what you just said, when you think about what you're just saying and you're telling us, and what Benny said, you could take this information, come from your table, the council, how he put it in his words, how you put it in your words, have you all together, take it into the schools, have an assembly. You leaders, you go and you talk to the students, from the little on up, and talk, you know, and tell them from your heart. Put it just like Benny said, especially the way he worded it is really nice. But I think you would be reaching the young people.
It was
A lot.
amazing. I had to take over for Father Jake yesterday because he couldn't control the kids. So yeah, for some reason
I think
we
it
did.
was good that you could go into the schools.
Yeah, but thank you very much.
I'd like to caution you on something, because like Benny, I coach football and baseball and basketball and all these things for little kids, you know, down in the Hanford area and the Tri-City areas. And the reason I'm bringing this up, there's some of these people that have these problems can really get attached to you because they look at you as an image, as a good image, and their dad or their mother aren't. And then first thing they're hanging around you, and every place you go, you got these, like a bunch of little ducks following you over, you know. And when they get really attached to you, it's really hard, you know, to break it off, because you know you pick these little individuals out that really care for you. And it's hard that, you know, to go to their parents and tell them, listen, you know, that you got a problem here, and I can't take care of your problem. I'm only a coach, you know. And so I don't know whether you run into that, Benny, or not, when you're coaching.
You know, I guess I look at it a little bit differently, you know, when I go into the center and I go into the community, when I walk into the pack today and you got kids screaming your name and seeking God, I take tremendous pride in that. And even some of the kids that went to school with my son that's now deceased, they still come up to me, they still come and give me that hug, they shake my hand, they tell me they love them, and they're 22, 23 years old, and so that means a lot to me, so
Well, I'm not saying
I don't
right
ever
here.
want to branch it off.
I never cut it off. What I'm just saying is, you get too attached though, and then that affects the kid, because you're adult and you know how you know how to handle it. But those kids don't, is what I'm saying.
Well, those kids we have those kids on Mother's Day, I have those kids calling me and saying Happy Mama Day, Happy Mama Day, and they're all adults and have their kids now. I mean, so I mean, I love the attachment. Go ahead.
I don't want, I just want to say that when my boys were little, I told them, you're San Puel, your grandpa, your great-grandmother was San Puel, you're San Puel. Your grandma is Kelly Hill, but you're San Puel, because I'm San Puel. And you don't treat people, you treat people how you want to be treated. If you want people to talk bad to you, go ahead and talk bad to them. But I better not hear about it, you know. I was fear of God and none of that. And then as they were growing up, when they go to school down here in Omak, my son started bringing kids home because he was worried about them because they had to go home to a parent dysfunctional home. So he'd bring them up to my house and he'd leave them on a porch and tell them, come in and tell me, well, I brought my friend home because he didn't want to go home. He doesn't like it at home. I thought, what are you doing? I mean, that's what you told him. You didn't go home and then when you told him.
Treat them like you want to be treated.
Yeah. Then when I moved to Spokane, my son was bringing kids that lived on the street to our house. I mean, how hard is that for me to understand? I don't want these people in my house.
Careful what you
But
ask
that
for.
they were doing what they were taught. I mean, I can't have I know we have to teach our children. It goes on, it's just a ripple of things that we teach our children. And if we can get one child or two children, I mean, my God, think of what would happen. They would be great. I mean, we'd have, I'm an alcoholic, and I drank a lot and partied a lot, but my kids were my kids. Nobody can approach me around my kids. You wanna meet me? Meet me down at the bar. Don't talk to me when I'm with my kids. Don't even think about it. Don't think about coming to my house drunk. Don't even think about it. My kids live there. You're not allowed in my house. But I can't believe it. I mean, it's just reaching the children. I love the children. My daddy always told me that children come first. He told my mother that all the time, that the children come first. And that's what I taught my kids. The children come first. And although I lost my son, but you know, I still think that, I still feel that, because of my nieces and my nephews, my grandbabies, great-grandbabies, they come first, before me, before anything in this world.
Stucky?
Yeah, what you brought up about the halfway house, I've been bringing this up to Mel Tenasket, our Deacola area, and I rode them pretty hard. I rode you guys pretty hard. Nina, I told you guys should live in a teepee. And I apologize, I was pretty angry because we was looking at big goals instead of looking at our people first. And I think as a council, you guys ought to be looking at it seriously. Just not short term or long term, because a lot of our people are too weak to handle 30 days. Some have been alcoholics most of their lives. It's going to take them 6 months to be strong enough to quit. And there's a lot of people, every one of you would be live now if they had the treatment start in at least 6 months. Grant, however you guys look at it, that should be done. That should be taken care of, you know.
I agree.
Yeah.
On that note, one of the things is, you know, like today, when we were talking about residential treatment, was that, you know, we kind of rely on state funding in some ways, and that's got cut back quite a bit. So, you know, I think, you know, the treatment center would be, you know, healing the people is probably one of the.
Healing the people, that's good.
That's where it is,
It is.
you know.
Healing the body and the spirit.
Yes.
I threatened my nephews to send them to Great Slave Lake in Canada, so traditional. I did. They had a really traditional one up there.
It's a long ways up there too. That's way up there.
Yeah, they would be out, good place.
Yeah, I love it, that is great. Well, I know that we have we have Francis here, that I'm glad that you were here, Francis. I'm glad you were a witness to the testimonies tonight and the presentation. One of the things that we had hoped is that there would be a mandatory memo from the executive director to attend every employee, to make sure that they're attending the upcoming training that's coming on for employees. And, you know, there's 2 days of it, and they need to be trained. We all need to be trained. So I really think that that's important, but I got my 2 cents, and Benny's gonna be facilitating the next agenda item.
So before we leave that subject, though, I have to tell you, I lived the last 15, 20 years of my life in Oregon after leaving Colville. And I worked very closely with and became personal friends with Senator Gordon Smith. And I can remember the very day that his son took his life, and it was his adopted son. And no one talked to Senator Smith for quite some time, but within a month or two, his aides were calling us at Coos, and I'm sure other tribes that he'd worked with. And he said the best way that he could deal with Garrett's death was to have the United States Senate and Congress recognize what was going on in Indian country relative to suicides. And I have to tell you, he's a Republican, he lost the election, but my entire career at Coos, Senator Gordon Smith was the champion. It was the Democratic side, Ron Wyden and so on and so forth, Peter Fazio, Congressman, who did very little to help the Coos tribe. But Senator Smith was a friend to Indian country, and of course he was surrounded, as you know, by the Umatilla tribe. So he had a special connection to Native Americans, and I just am very proud that the staff applied for and got a grant from the Garrett Foundation. But I have to tell you, I can remember that day as if it was yesterday. And of course, Garrett was off at college when he took his own life. And so I just want to personally thank Senator Gordon Smith for him pushing this funding and legislation for tribes, because it's been very helpful. And it's not every day we see $1 million grant. Not every day. Okay.
And the date for the, just so everybody has it, the prayer day is going to be November 1st. Remember that, everybody. Keep your calendars open, November 1st. Join us for prayer day.
We're ordering bracelets, those